1968 was a big year for cinema. The Hays Code, which had been declining in use and power for years, was finally abandoned completely and was replaced by the film rating system that we have today, or at least something very close to it. And the very first film to get an X rating under this new system? Vixen. Welcome to Exploitation Reviews, and me, Rob. Vixen was both a commercial and critical success. It earned about $8 million at the box office against a budget of about $70,000, and Roger Ebert said it was the best skin flick to date. That sounds pretty cool. Let's check it out. We open in
bush country.
Hey, now wait a minute. This is a Russ Meyer movie. We don't need to go to that country.
The Canadian Northwest.
Oh, okay. Canada's cool. The narrator tells us that these adventurous bush pilots are the ones responsible for getting people into and out of Canada's bush. I wonder if they went unemployed after we discovered razors. Anyway, our bush pilot stops for gas, and he chats with a gas station attendant, and the attendant wonders if his wife, Vixen, is happy being out there all alone. The pilot, easily one of the most clueless men in a Russ Meyer movie, and that's saying something, says that Vixen is perfectly happy taking care of the house. Yeah, pretty clueless. After Vixen is finished being mounted by a Mountie, she runs across her brother Judd and his friend Niles. She doesn't like Niles very much, and she flings a few racist barbs his way. He shrugs them off, but Vixen hits a nerve when she accuses him of being a cowardly draft dodger.
Since you are of draft age and a United States citizen and for some mysterious reason refuse to go back to your own country.
There ain't nothing mysterious about my reasons.
Like how you got so black on the outside when you're so yellow on the inside?
Cool it, Vixen.
You're forgetting again.
The brother tries to get the two to play nice and even suggests that Vixen and Niles hook up, but Vixen says she would rather hook up with him, her own brother. Ugh. And in any other movie, all of this would be rather gross and off-putting. The racism, the incestuous flirting, but you're not watching any other movie. You're watching a Russ Meyer movie, and he was a master of keeping things light. Sure, the things these people say and do are outlandish and, on paper offensive, but it doesn't come across that way because Russ at no point lets us take any of this seriously. Vixen's clueless husband brings home a couple. They're going to stay the weekend and do some fishing, and Vixen wastes no time telling them both how attractive they are. More playthings for our nympho, it seems. That night, Vixen tries to excite the man of the couple by dancing seductively with a fish. What? Yeah, remember what I said about Russ not letting us take any of this seriously? This fish scene actually is rather infamous for being one of the weirder scenes in Russ Meyer's filmography, and that's saying something. After the fish fry, the couples retire to their bedrooms. Vixen gets some action. The other woman wants some action, but her husband is tired. But he's not tired the next day when Vixen takes him upstream to do some fishing. His wife, meanwhile, strikes out again with Vixen's husband.
This is King. I'm your host and official guide, not your alternate stud. Would you button up?
But don't worry, Vixen won't let her stay unlaid for long.
May I come in? Not unless you like bourbon.
Oh man, bourbon with a hot woman? This movie is ticking my boxes. The two women get a little tipsy and then compliment each other on being in good shape, and then they decide that the only way to see if they're really in good shape is to see each other naked. Yeah, that's true. That's the only way to tell. And all of this leads to one of the most erotic scenes that Russ ever put together. It's interesting that here in Vixen and next year in Cherry, Harry, and Raquel, Russ goes for eroticism with his lesbian scenes rather than going silly or bombastic like he normally does with his hetero scenes. There might be something to this, but you'd have to ask someone smart. I'm a guy who reviews old nudie films for the internet. Not smart. But anyway, we're about 30 minutes into a 70-minute movie, and you might be wondering, what the hell's going on? What's the plot of this film? And the truth is, there isn't one. I mean, not really. This film is pretty much picaresque. But after a little more kink, including a brother-sister shower that turns into a brother-sister bang, the film starts to veer into politics. What? But that's enough out of me as far as threadbare plot goes. Let's talk some highlights. Well, highlight number one has got to be Vixen's eyebrows. No, I'm just kidding. I don't care about eyebrows. Vixen is pretty cool, though. Like all Meyer women, she's aggressive, but she goes beyond even typical aggressive Meyer woman into this sort of animalistic, more visceral kind of behavior. She grunts and she barks orders. That's pretty cool. In fact, Meyer attributed much of the film's success to Erica Gavin's portrayal of Vixen. This hit a nerve with people back in 1968, including with women. Loads of women came out to see this thing. For this reason, Meyer thought the film was a bit ahead of its time. He thought he had made a sexploitation film that appealed to women. I guess maybe he did. And beyond Vixen, who really is a cool character, I do actually like the last 10 minutes of this movie when it turns into this weird political discussion. There's this rather longish argument between Vixen and Niles and a communist. And it shows off Russ's politics to a certain extent, which is kind of interesting. You might not know this, but Russ was a total square. He was even, conservative. He was a true blue, flag-waving patriot. He was a war veteran. Yeah, pretty weird, there's that part of him, and then also, all of his films. But yeah, that's Russ. And what's interesting here is even though Russ was a flag-waving patriot, the draft dodger is not the bad guy here because America has let him down. And Vietnam is not worth the sacrifice.
The only thing America ever did for me was to not stop me from getting out.
It's funny, but there's 50,000 other black men sitting in foxholes who don't seem to feel that way.
Well, now, they're just not awake yet.
Damn, who knew Russ was woke? But no, the bad guy here is the communist. Russ hated communists. And all of this is pretty cool and interesting and kind of fun to watch, but I wouldn't say the movie is perfect. Like a man watching a woman dance with a fish, it has some shortcomings. Well, I know this film was a big hit and is a fan favorite, and I know that Ebert thought it was the best skin flick up until the time it was made, but for me, really, it's just kind of middle of the road as far as Russ pictures go. For a Russ film that tries to have a story, it's a little less engaging for me than his gothic pictures, Lorna, Mudhoney, Motorpsycho. And for a Russ film that relies a bit on dialogue, the dialogue here is less snappy than those wonderful Jack Moran scripts. Like we have in Faster Pussycat or Good Morning and Goodbye. Vixen isn't as zany as Super Vixens, and there's only 2 women in this movie. They're both beautiful, don't get me wrong, but there's only 2 of them, and neither of them are larger than life, as we maybe expect in a Russ Meyer film. So, yeah, I like this movie. I think it's worth checking out. Not my favorite Russ Meyer film, but it's far from Russ's worst film. Very, very far from his worst film. It's just when I feel like watching a Russ Meyer film, Vixens aren't the ones I grab. Vixen isn't the one I grab.